Hello and welcome to the I Can Do podcast with Benjamin Lee. We're here to talk about tips and strategies to have an I Can Do mindset when it comes to faith, family, fitness, and food. Let's go. Here's your host, Benjamin Lee.
Hello and welcome to another episode of I Can Do. I am Benjamin Lee. Thank you so much for tuning in. It takes what it takes. That is the title of a book I recently read by Trevor Muad, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. He works with a number of sports professionals when it comes to thinking and staying focused. And he also works with a number of other individuals as well. And the book that I picked up, It Takes What It Takes, is really interesting because it's really focusing upon our mindset. The cover says how to think neutrally and gain control of your life. And so what Trevor does, he is like a strategic advisor to athletes. And there's a whole new business out there of not just training athletes physically, but also mentally. I'm really intrigued with this because there is something very important with our mindsets. And I understand this, and I know you do as well. You don't have to be a professional athlete to understand this. I think we all can understand that when we are thinking negatively, we get negative results 100% of the time. Maybe we'll get lucky and some things will work out, but the more you think in a negative way, it often comes to pass. And so what do? Well, negative thinking isn't going to work. So more often or not, we resort to positive thinking. Positive thinking is very good. I think it's very important. I think that's kind of been the alternative. It's either negative or positive. But now you have this third alternative where you can think in a more neutral position or in a more neutral way. One of the things that I thought was interesting, and he uses a lot of football examples because he works with Russell Wilson, among others, is that imagine if you're playing in a football game, maybe it's the Super Bowl or maybe it's the NFC Championship game, and you're down 16-0. Well, there may not be a lot to be positive about, and you can say, listen, everything's going to work out okay, everything's going to be all right. Well, maybe it will be. We know that negative thinking is not going to work, but we also understand that while you can still remain positive, there's something else that we need to do. And that's where neutral thinking really comes into play. He says in the book, neutral thinking is going to the truth. That's what Russell Wilson shared in his foreword in the book. Neutral thinking is going to the truth. Where are we at? What situation are we in? How are we going to execute? What's our mission? That's what Navy SEALs often will ask. How are we going to win? So this kind of mindset of neutral thinking where it's not ignoring what's taken place and it's not giving up by any stretch of the imagination, but it's understanding, okay, this is where I am, this is where we are, so what do we do to move the ball forward? Or what do we do to lose that inch off of our waist? Or what do I need to do to add 5 pounds to my bench press? So that's the idea of neutral thinking. And I really liked it because there's something in this book that stood out to me that can definitely help us when it comes to this idea of neutral thinking. And that's what this podcast is really all about. What is in your ad campaign? That was a chapter was dedicated to this idea of it takes an ad campaign in your brain when it comes to neutral thinking. It's chapter 6 in the book. And I love what he talked about because he discusses this idea of marketing. We understand how powerful marketing is. We can use certain phrases, just do it, and so many other phrases that I could say that we instantly know what we're talking about or who we are talking about. We know how powerful marketing is in a positive way and also in a negative way, especially when it comes to children and what is often promoted to them. But do we also think about that when it comes to ourselves? You see, all of us are creating or have or developing some kind of ad campaign in our brains. This ad campaign is something that we will listen to, we will pause, hit the reverse button. Sometimes we'll even hit the fast forward button because we don't like what we're seeing. And I think there's something here for all of us when it comes to our thinking, when it comes to being successful, not just in sports, but also with our day-to-day lives. What is in our ad campaign? In other words, how do we talk to ourselves? Where is our focus? It's interesting how so many people can be so negative about themselves. They talk bad when they talk to themselves. You've made so many mistakes. You could have done this better. Yeah, but what about all this? And they never really put the spotlight on their successes, victories, the obstacles that they've been able to overcome. And there's something to be said about that. Because if our ad campaign is only filled with regret and negative speech, that's what we're going to get. So when it comes to this mindset of neutral thinking, one of the things that I began doing back in 2016, and sometimes people may not feel comfortable doing this, but I began writing certain phrases to myself in books and journals. The title of this podcast, I Can Do, is a thought, a phrase that I've written out numerous times. It's part of my ad campaign, you can say. I have my cookie jar that I got from another book. This idea, there's not literal cookies in it, but cookies sound pretty good. Let me take that back. Cookies are very good. But in this cookie jar, there are different things where I've been successful that I can put in this jar. So all of those really start playing in my ad campaign. What's in yours? If our ad campaigns are only filled with what ifs and regrets, and I messed up here and I fumbled the ball and I threw an interception, and this is so important obviously for athletes. If you make a mistake on the big stage, how do you recover? Well, you can remain negative or you can be positive, but you also have to look at where you are, how you can get better, and what you may need to adjust. Isn't that, though, how it works really in every aspect of our lives? Neutral thinking. I like this idea. And positivity can still be connected to this as well. It doesn't mean that you never smile or get excited or passionate about something, but you are staying in the moment. You are asking and evaluating and saying, okay, what is this next step? Maybe it's just the next play. And that's kind of what my podcast, Little by Little, is really all about. Sometimes it's just taking that first step, that second step, that third step, staying in the moment. What can I do at this very moment to improve? So much of this is going to depend upon what we are seeing and hearing in our own minds. So I want you to think about this. What's in your ad campaign? Well, the good news is you get to decide. So I would encourage you to begin making one, or at least reviewing the game film. Maybe consider what you have been saying to yourself, how you view yourself, all of these elements, and maybe you need to start making some adjustments. And not focus so much on all the bad, all the mistakes, all the interceptions, all the fumbles, but start focusing on the victories and past successes that will give you that confidence when new challenges arise, when new opportunities arise, so that you can continue to have these breakthroughs every single day. Or like in a football game, in the first quarter, the second quarter, the third quarter, and where it matters the most, the fourth quarter. But the choice is yours. What's in your ad campaign? What do you tell yourself? What are you watching? What are you viewing in your brain? Make it epic and see what happens. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to check out my website, benjaminlee.blog, where you can find hundreds of blogs and this podcast as well. And if you would, I would really appreciate you leaving me a review of this podcast. And remember, I can do, and so can you. Put that in your ad campaign, all right? Talk to you later.